Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Golf Chat Show Live. Today, I'm joined by Karl Morris and Simon Dyson, and we're going to talk about how you can make the most of your golf without changing your golf swing. That might sound strange. You go for lessons, you want to change your swing, and you feel like you have to. We're going to talk about a few reasons why that potentially might not have to be the case. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having us.
How are you doing?
Top man. Good to be here.
Good.
Good. I mean, I want to start off before we get into what we want to talk about on tonight's show, guys. PGA Tour have just announced that they're going to start behind closed doors, no spectators, in June. Like, how does that even happen?
Go on, Karl. I'll let you have that one.
I'm just going to say, I think that's I'm not sure whether it's a bold call or a sort of very optimistic call, but I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, really. I suppose one place that they could do something like that is the States, because they're all there. I think the European Tour, it's going to be far more difficult getting things back on track, because guys are going to fly in literally from all over the world. So, I suppose there'll be a lot of people, even if it is behind closed doors, a lot of people watch it on TV. So, on the one hand, I think maybe it's a little bit too bold, but on the other hand, it's good that we've got at least something to look forward to, hopefully, in the future. I think that's what we're all sort of missing at the minute is some kind of milestone to aim at in the future. Certainly in the UK, we're all in that bit of a limbo land at the moment, which, as we'll perhaps talk about, and we can relate it to golf. When you're very uncertain about what the future is going to be, it creates a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just on the PGA Tour, I mean, you think about it, you've got all these guys from across America. Now, if you look at America, I spoke to one of my friends. One of them, he lives in New York, but he can go to a different state and play golf. So some states are isolated, some states aren't. So you're going to bring everybody together, caddies, players, TV crews, interviewers, whatever it might be, put them all in one place and then go, oh, let's hopefully not get it. Surely you have to quarantine people for like 7 to 12 days in the same area before you even think about playing.
Yeah, literally, I wouldn't know how that'll work. Like you say, I mean, we've got friends who are in San Fran and they're under complete lockdown. So to bring people who live in California to, the East Coast, I'm with you. I can't see it working. But like you say, you've got to have that aim to maybe try and get everything up and running again and back to normal, because that's what people want. They're missing sport massively. So to give somebody that little bit of hope, who knows?
Yeah, I
think the thing is, Alex, that history is a pretty harsh critic. And, when we look back on this in 12 months, 2 years' time or whatever, we'll look back, and some people have got it right in terms of making decisions, governments, states. Some people have got it horrendously wrong. You look at the extreme examples. I was talking with somebody in Australia the other day, and exactly the same there. I think in New South Wales, they're all still playing golf. And then, you fly to New Zealand and it's complete lockdown. They're not allowed to go out of the houses. They're not allowed to do anything, and then you hear about Sweden, and it's been only a partial lockdown. I think we're just all in the dark really at the minute, aren't we? And that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, and there's probably a few conspiracies out there in there as well that I've been reading and know.
We'll not get into all of that. I don't
No, it's not the kind of show we're on about tonight.
Talk golf.
Okay, so I want to start with, guys, you performed at high level, you've won at a high level. I want to go into how do top performers deal with the crowd? Because you put most amateurs in front of their friends and they just absolutely dissolve. People don't like it. So from your point of view, Karl, how do the top performers thrive on that? And then just from your point of view, Dice, like how do you kind of focus that out of that theory of the crowd being there? How do you do that as a player?
Simon, you go first.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like the environment that you're playing in. If you're used to playing in front of big crowds, I honestly do believe you can just totally bypass it. I remember playing Valderrama, Volvo Masters, and I remember hitting a shot into 17, and it was over the water, second shot in. I was going in with like a 6-iron, and I hit the shot and hit it to like 20 feet. And my caddies looked at me and gone, I don't know how you hit that. And I said, why? He went, look at the crowd. And I turned around and I was totally irrelevant. I was totally, I didn't have a clue what was going on because I was so focused on what I had to do. And I think these top boys are used to that, and they can just blank it out, and that's why they are where they are. Because if you can't, it's hard playing in front of crowds like that, especially in America.
And Karl, what's that from your point of view? How would, if you had a top player or a player that was trying to break through onto European tour and you thought this guy's got it but just needs to deal with things a little bit differently, how do you coach someone to deal with that?
I think what Simon's just said's given all the clues there, really. That, skill and competence as a huge part to play, obviously, Alex. And I think the things that you get used to where you're performing, in any situation that others would find stressful. You hear about some sportsmen and women, Dyson have played in it many times, the Dunhill links, and you've got world stars who are, greats in other sports, but they get on the first tee at golf at St Andrews or Kingsbarns or Carnoustie, whatever, and they're a mess. They're a quaking mess because they're out of the comfort zone. They're in an environment that they're not used to. So I think there's two things. Is, in any situation where you want to develop the ability to be resilient to that, number one is about developing skills. Dyson has developed great skills. He was confident in his ability, so that's one element to it. But I think the other thing as well is exposure to whatever it is that you're scared of. The one I can relate it to is speaking in public. I'll, up until this recent situation, I might never give another one again the way things are going. But presenting live to a lot of people, a lot of people hear that they're actually terrified of that. And if I go back to the first time I did it, I would have been in that situation. But the more you put yourself in that stressful situation, then the more you build skills that you can get through, the more you acclimatize. I don't think there's any magic bullet for it, really. I think it's a combination of developing skills, understanding that exposure, but also ultimately it's about having your attention, something we've talked a lot about, having your attention in the right place. And as Dice just said there in that example, his attention was very much absorbed in the shot that he was playing. So when you're so focused on creating that golf shot, you've not got the bandwidth to start focusing on other things. And I think that's something that everybody listening can take from this. It's understanding. We spend so much time trying to work on our golf swing, but we don't get anywhere near enough time to what's my attention on and developing attentional skills. As we've talked so much about, I think there's some really interesting stuff that people can look at that can liberate the golf when they understand about the power of attention.
So
it's funny you say that. Sorry, Alex. It's funny you say that because I remember, like you're saying about the Dunhill, I asked Freddie to play with me one time, Flintoff, and it was like I'd asked him to do something totally, he didn't want to play. And I'm like, why not? He said, I couldn't handle the pressure. And I'm like, you've played in front of 100,000 at the MCG.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there'll be 20 people on the tee. He's like, yeah, it's 20 too many for me. So that's out of his comfort zone. He never played, which was a shame.
That's mad, isn't it? How in one sport you can perform at a high level, but like you're saying there, you put yourself in a slightly different situation. And really, it's just another sport that he's actually probably pretty good at anyway. And just wouldn't do it. It's
that one shot. And once you're off that first tee, you're away. But the thought of that first shot, it's like speaking, like Karl said. I think the build-up is worse than the actual deliverance.
Yeah.
And that's what he thought. He'd have made himself sick with the build-up to that first tee shot. But as soon as he was away, he'd have been fine.
So, Karl, if you've got a mid-handicapper, a lot of people who watch this show are either mid-handicapper or single figures, what would you say to them would be a good way of getting comfortable being uncomfortable?
I think, this is back to when we get back to what some form of normal, Alex, and I'm sure it's something we'll explore a bit more because the three of us have talked about this over the last couple of years. My firm belief is that as golfers, and I certainly fell into this trap, we've developed an awful lot of practice ground skills or driving range skills where we get very, very comfortable in that environment where there's always another ball waiting for us there. It's a perfectly flat lie. If we hit a bad shot, we can put it right by just scraping another ball and feeling good straight away. And then we get on a golf course, and the golf course is such a different challenge. It's such a different environment. Everything's dynamic, everything's changing, every shot's different. I think, I've thought a lot in these last few days, as we all have. We've all, had too much time to reflect. But I think if there's ever a chance for the game to change in the way it's coached, I think maybe this is the big chance. And guys like yourself and Simon, I know, spending more time out on the golf course with players and actually seeing how they do interact with the course and how they react to out of bounds on the right and wind off the left and all this kind of stuff that we can spend forever trying to perfect a golf swing in the hope that it'll protect us from bad shots. But if there's anything I know from sort of 30 years at it, is that never happens. You never get the golf swing as such. You never get to a point where it'll protect you from bad shots. But I think there's such a difference between how we interact with golf on a range and how we interact on a golf course. I just think there's a massive opportunity for coaches and players, and I think maybe some of the players, your audience listening to this, you guys listening to this, maybe they need to drive a little bit more and say, look, with the coach, I want to be out on the golf course with you. I want you to watch me, what I do in the real environment, because we've just got so used to this model of pitch up for a lesson, half an hour, hit balls, and just we pick something in the swing to focus on. And that's just a tiny microcosm of the game. There was a guy called Randy Joyner on my podcast. He's a very successful PGA Tour coach, and he just went off on one, and he said, I just hate range coach. And he said, because it just doesn't achieve hardly anything. All you do is just isolate something in a golf swing that you don't like the look of, and you think you fixed it. They'll hit better shots there and then go away and say, I shot 94 in the medal on Saturday. But I think, as I said, this opportunity for all of us to reset and rethink, maybe that'll change the direction of the coaching of the game.
Because I know if you look at the way a traditional or where we look at the coaching model right now, and this is something that all three of us have spoken about, you turn up for half an hour, the coach gets quite hands-on, which potentially in the future may not be able to, almost puts you in a false position. Whereas now, like you're saying, you need to get more on the course, which is something that you do, Simon, and you do, Karl, already. But I think there's got to be something said where people are actually looking to improve their golf, not improve their golf swing. It's massive.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, I was chatting to the guys at TXG over in Canada. I did a podcast for them this afternoon, and they were saying, like, talk us through what you do with your players. So I did, and I told them, like, I love getting them out on the course. It's where you really see, where they are struggling, really. And it was like I was telling them something brand new, and I said, like, it's amazing how many players you see. You only have to look at the range on a Tuesday at a tour event. You can't get a spot. Whereas, why aren't they out on the course? Testing the skills out there, and it makes me laugh. Now that I've stopped playing and I've looked more into what Karl teaches and spoke with Ian Highfield, Stuart Morgan, people like that, and I'm really getting a gist of, I don't want to teach on the range. I want it all to be course.
It's mad.
So the thing is, Alex, the fundamental question most golfers ask is, what's wrong with my swing? Now, the problem is with that very question, what's wrong with my swing? And you never get to a conclusion, because what's wrong with my swing will draw you into somebody's opinion. So, Simon might like it a bit flatter at the top. You might like it a bit more upright. Somebody else might favour the hips, doing whatever. Right. It's all opinion based then. But if the question is, what's wrong with my shots? If there's a collaboration between the coach and the player about what the golf ball's doing, when you get out on the golf course, as far as I'm aware, at the end of a round of golf, they ask you how many shots you've taken. They don't ask you how many swings you've made. And I think that just that fundamental shift, asking that question, what's wrong with my shot? If you want to play a draw or a fade, is there too much shape on it? Is it starting too far left? You can get somewhere when that is the focus. And, and I know Simon's doing a lot more of this on the golf course, because when you get out on the golf course, then it's about what shots come out in those situations. And then that's something that you can really work on as a collaboration. And I think there's so much, it drives me mad. I see so much on I don't go on social media that much, but people send me stuff, and I see, you know, and all the time I keep seeing these things. Look at the swing changes. Look at how, you know, this was the guy here and he came to me, and look at him here now. He's making a much better golf swing. And I think, well, how do we know? How do we know he's actually making a better golf swing? Because we don't see golf shots.
Yeah.
Now, if you say, right, I've got this guy and he had so much curvature on it, and we've worked on a few things, and look at his curvature now with the 10 balls on TrackMan, and his strike pattern is much better. Yeah, fantastic. I'm all with that. But just looking at a picture of before and after, in terms of how it looks, I think that is a really dangerous road for us all to keep going down.
But you hear him come off. Sorry, I was just going to say, you hear him come off the course, and you go, "How'd you play it?" "Oh, I swung it terrible today."
Yeah.
Not many people say, "Oh, I scored pretty poor today. I couldn't see the shot." It always comes back to the swing, and then they go on the range, hit more balls, trying to groove the swing, as we all know, and you know, they might get something at that death at the end of the day, and they're like, "Oh, right, I'm all right now," but we know it can't transfer to the next day. But yeah, it's always about the swing, isn't it?
Where do you think that's all come from, though? Like, do you reckon that comes from, like, I mean, just from what I hear, Faldo was a great golfer, obviously, and major champion, but was he the one that sort of started changing people about the positions in the swing, because he was sort of down that methodical route? Did it all sort of stem from that?
Yeah, I think going back, you know, I'm old enough to remember, you know, European Tour events, and there were hardly any coaches knocking around in those days. And even before video came along, Alex, you know, video was supposed to be the answer to all our problems in golf, because we can suddenly see the golf swing. Well, I know that an awful lot of coaches actually use very little video now, because it distracts us, because people get drawn into how it looks. But I think, you know, there's not really a short answer to a very good question. I think if you look at how we've gone as a society, we're a very visual orientated society. You know, people are constantly posting pictures, videos, all the rest of it. You know, so we're very much into the aesthetics of how something looks. Somebody said to me recently, and it was Kendall McWade said, it was a great point. He said, maybe the best example of wonderful coaching in the last 25 years has been Jim Furyk's father. Because Jim Furyk's father is a golf pro. Now can you imagine that your lad, you know, young Jim turns up and he's going playing golf with the members and he swings it like that? And you'd think, Jesus, that takes some courage not to change it. But obviously Jim Furyk's dad was smart enough to see that what Jim might not have great style, but he's got unbelievable skill. He's got the skill of controlling that golf ball. And, you know, $70 million later or whatever he's won, tells you that golf swing may not please us in the way that it looks, but my goodness, if you had Jim Furyk's skill, you wouldn't give a toss about how it looks, and he's always had the ability to control his golf ball.
Is it right how he came about that swing? He always used to take it a bit on the inside, and it was his dad who said, "I want you to exaggerate your takeaway outside," right. And he started doing it and started absolutely flushing it. And he went, I'm just gonna carry on doing this, and then it stuck. Apparently, that's the story behind it. Apparently, but amazing. I love that.
Well, it stuck pretty well, didn't it?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Okay, and I want to go on to the next thing, and this is something that me and Simon have become quite passionate about since we've been to your Mind Factor course, Karl. Practice or training? And just exploring the way people phrase it, and you alluded to before, Simon, when you said, I'm going to go and grind it out, I'm going to go and work on my swing. Like, it's
love that word.
Yeah, exactly. But you see it on social media all the time. Oh, I'm going to go and grind, or players come off and need to go and grind on the range, or I did 4 hours of hitting balls. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So just want to kind of get onto the topic of practice or training. And Karl, what's your point of view on that?
How long have we got for this?
Oh, it's not,
this could go on a long time. Jesus, don't get me started. I mean, if you look at it, other things. So you know, you train to be a surgeon, and then you practice surgery. You know, you train to be a lawyer, then you practice law. But what we miss at golf is we have this idea that if we go practicing, that this fundamental belief is that if I stand there and repeat a movement over and over again, that suddenly will imprint itself in my brain, and I'll then take it with me out onto the golf course. Well, I'm sure Dice will back this up. You know, how many times have any of us ever, what we felt yesterday, does it ever feel the same the next day? It's always feels slightly different. You know, the best players in the world only probably feel like they've got the golf swing under control for a few days in a given year. So we're all still harboring this illusion that if I stand there and repeat a movement, it'll come with me. You know, and all the sort of motor learning research debunks this idea that your brain creates a file that you just repeat over and over again is actually nonsense. It doesn't work that way. Our brain, in terms of movement, is built for adaptability and flexibility, not consistency. It's hardwired as a kind of genetic survival mechanism. You know, without getting too sciencey about it, you know, when we roamed around in caves and we came out and the primary purpose of life was to survive, if you didn't adapt to your environment by doing different things every day, you wouldn't survive. If you just kept replicating the same movement, you would end up being lunch rather than securing lunch. And, you know, all the experiments that have been done, there was a famous one done, Nikolai Bernstein, back in early 1900s, and he got a bunch of expert blacksmiths. Now, obviously, a blacksmith is an expert with a hammer, and they were told just to hit a nail. And these blacksmiths hit the nail the same place pretty much every single time. So it looked very, very consistent. But what they found is that when they analyzed the movements, that all of the movements varied slightly. So there was no such thing as replicating movement, but what the actual outcome was pretty much the same because the system organized movement. So I think, first of all, getting away from this myth that we can create a swing that will just be in our system that will go with us all the time. But then to me, okay, we should be training. In other sports, you train for the game. Okay, well, what's going to happen at golf? Well, we're going to miss a bunch of greens at golf. We're going to miss a bunch of fairways. We're going to miss some putts. Well, surely we should be training for that. And, you know, as we talked about, Alex, in the videos that we did, you know, I think there's some fantastic training games that players could be playing out on the golf course where you're actually training yourself for what we know is going to happen. Yet we're all still standing on a range thinking, if I can just keep repeating this swing, I'll go out there and not hit bad shots. And then it never happens. So we just keep perpetuating this myth, really.
And then, because
yeah,
you do loads with your players, don't you, along the lines
yeah,
of course, testing them?
I think when you train, you're trying to progress. You train in a gym, you're not practicing how to lift a weight. You're training yourself and you just figure it out as you go along. But you train how to do it properly to benefit yourself. And then you progress and you lift heavier weights. That for me, I remember chatting to Pete and he said, nobody ever worked harder than me on a range. And I said, he said, I hit more balls than anybody. And I said, what did that do for you? And he said, it made my muscles stronger. That is it. And that's all it does when you think about it. But if you train to the environment that you're going to be in on a golf course, you're getting more used to it. You're not replicating it by shelling ball after ball after ball. You could be practicing a nice little draw, sticks in to a target, little draw. You get on the first hole, you've got a little fade into a back right pin. How do you know if you can hit that shot? So actually getting them on the course and saying to them, what shot do you see here? And seeing how they go about it. And I just think it's way more beneficial, actually, one ball around the short game, one ball on the course, and just get them replicating what they're going to be, doing on the course in competition. When you speak about it like this, it just makes perfect sense, yet nobody seems to be doing it.
No, but I think the hard thing is, and I think we sort of talked about it before, the model of coaching. If you went to a player, right, you're going to come down, we're going to go on the golf course, we're going to play, you're going to come with me for 3 hours, we're going to play 9 holes. I might not say much to you. You're going to end up getting better. They almost come with an expectation of you have to reroute my whole golf swing, don't they? I found that. And until doing work with Karl over the last couple of years, and I had probably fallen into that step because that's how I was taught to coach. But now I'm definitely moving towards the end of the spectrum because of this.
I think the hardest part, Alex, is that there's an economic model built around giving half-hour lessons. You know, it's an efficient economic model, isn't it? You know, you come for a lesson, the guy, it's a bunch of balls, you get told something, you pay your money and off you go, and the next one comes along, and you can, you know, a pro can do anything up to 15, 20 lessons a day. But, you know, I think if we're really honest, you know, is that making a difference to people? Is that improving people's game? And, you know, I'm not saying that doesn't work for anybody, but, you know, all our collective, you know, we've got somebody here, I've been involved in coaching a long time, you know, got a great European tour player who's actually, and the number of times people say what Simon said, when you come out of that environment and you look back and you just sort of think, well, what madness is it really? We must be the only sport. Can you imagine another sport where coaches never see the players play? Can you imagine a football coach? Here's how crazy this is. So you imagine, you know, take a football coach, Jurgen Klopp, let's say, right, I'm going to have a new idea this year. I'm not going to watch you play a single game, and I'm going to get you all to come and tell me how you've played the week after. I mean, it's just insane when you think about it like that, isn't it? But, you know, that's what we do at golf. You know, the pro stands there, the guy comes along and says, pro says, how did you play at the weekend? And he'll say, oh, I played crap, I'm slicing it. And, you know, that's just, it really just is insane, really, where actually, you know, as you two are doing and I do, if you get out on the golf course and you see how that person reacts on a course, I think, you know, we've all experienced it lately. You can get really excited about the changes that people can make, not to the golf swing, but to the way they play golf. And I think, you know, this is going to be a tough time when we do get back to normal for golf, and hopefully it can come through the other side. But, you know, I've heard for the last 10 years that people are not playing golf because they've not got enough time and it's too expensive and all the rest of it. Now, that might be a factor. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, it's surprising what human beings will find the time for if they really enjoy it. And it's surprising how much human beings will spend if they really enjoy something. So is it because we're not people who are playing golf up to, they're not enjoying it enough? But maybe, and we've all got to hold our hands up here and say, maybe some of the coaching's influenced that. Maybe some of the coaching is actually taking people's enjoyment because they don't feel like they're getting any better.
I always like the one with Tiger Woods' coach that you tell us. And he said, I didn't ruin him. And he basically made his environment enjoyable every time he practiced, didn't he?
That was a brilliant one, that Simon.
Brilliant.
I was really lucky to meet. He was in China last year, in the days when you could go to China. So that, again, that might not happen again for a while. But I was really lucky because I was doing some Mind Factor training courses out there for Chinese coaches, and brilliant people, so enthusiastic about learning. But over there, they'd got Rudy Duran there, who was Tiger Woods' first coach, and you couldn't meet a more humble, unassuming guy. You know, here's somebody who's contributed to maybe one of the greatest players of all time. And I asked him, and I said, Rudy, I said, what did you do with Tiger? How did you coach him? And he just smiled and he said, well, if the first thing I didn't do, I didn't ruin him. He said, I look back now, and we very rarely talked about golf swing. He said, but what we did do is we played loads of golf. We got out on the golf course, and even from 5-6 years of age, he said Tiger just loved to create shots. He'd stand there with wedges and trying a bit of a fade with a wedge, or just draw it in and make the ball skip in. And he said all we did is just create loads of games, create an environment that was fun. You know, and it was interesting listening to some of the myths as well. You know, there's always this sort of story about Earl Woods being this authoritarian and, you know, standing there and hitting millions of balls with Tiger and not making him practice forever. And Rudy said it couldn't have been further from the truth. He said, you know, Earl Woods himself just wanted to work on his own game, and Tiger came along and they just had a lot of fun playing. I mean, he told me a story. He said there was a few times where Earl would ring Rudy up and say, you know, can we have a lesson? And Rudy said to him, he said, well, I've only got one slot. You know, and Earl had said, well, I want me and Tiger to have a lesson. And Rudy says, I've only got one slot. And Earl said, well, I'll take that. Tiger can wait for next week. So he was more bothered about his own game than Tiger's, which is brilliant to hear that.
Yeah, because the story's painted that his dad was literally like the military dad. You will hit golf balls, you will hit this, you will do that.
Yeah.
And
do you know what I like as well? Every now and again on Instagram, somebody will post something about Tiger's day, about what he does, gets up, goes in the gym, this, that. It always has, he plays. Every one I see, it always says he plays 9 or 18 to finish the day. You know, so it's not like gym, range, short game, putting, gym. It's like gym, range for a bit, putting for a bit, go and play 9, have lunch, blah, 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 something else, go and play 9, finish in the gym. He always played. And that's what he loved doing, didn't he?
The other thing that's interesting as well with that, Dice, is that Martin Hall, he came on my podcast, you know, the guy from the Golf Channel, and he knows Woods pretty well, and he's seen him give hundreds of clinics, hundreds of demonstrations and things like that. And he said it's fascinating watching Woods give a clinic. He said because what he does, he said he'll hit 2 shots, the wedge, just nowhere, just to get his body moving. And then Martin said after he's hit those 2 shots, he said every single shot that he plays, he aims to have a specific trajectory and a specific shape to every single shot.
Has a purpose.
So, on purpose.
No, every shot has a purpose then.
Every shot has a purpose, yeah. So, you know, Tiger's primary concern is what shots he's hitting. Every shot that he's playing in practice, he's aiming to hit a low fade or a high draw or whatever. And, you know, I just think it just opens up such an interesting area when you start looking at what's wrong with my shots rather than what's wrong with my swing. I mean, I was watching the other day, you know, with the time that we've got, I don't know if any of you two watched it, The Shell's Wonderful World of Golf. And there's some amazing stuff from the past on there. And it was Sam Snead and Ben Hogan playing at Houston Country Club in the 1950s. And you've heard me tell this story because I heard it years ago, that apparently when somebody said to Sam Snead, Sam, what do you do when you're hooking the ball?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I just go to the range and I slice it for a while. Now, that sounds ridiculous.
People wouldn't dream of saying it. It's just crazy.
No, that sounds ridiculous, but there's genius in it, because if you think about it, if you've got too much shape on it one way, what's the antidote to that? It's the opposite shape. So Snead knew that he could actually fix his shots with shots rather than getting too involved in what he was doing in his golf swing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so simple. Why don't people listen to it?
Well, it's that simple, though, like Karl said. It is that simple, isn't it? It's a game of opposites. Like you say, if you find you're getting it on the inside and you're starting it right, just work on starting it a bit further left.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple, and people look at me and go, is that it? And I'm like, that is it.
Okay, guys, last 2 questions for tonight. I want to get into stories, and this is something that you spoke about when we came to your talk, Karl. A lot of people will come off the golf course and they'll be like, oh, that 7th hole mucked me up again, or that 18th, I was going well till then. And it's probably the same thing they say every single week. I think as humans, and I'm exploring this more from what we listened to when you were speaking, Karl, we almost like to prove ourselves right, don't we? So if we have a bad story, we want to go, oh, okay, we'll make that happen.
Yeah, if somebody said to me, Alex, what's the most influential book you've ever read? It's a book called Redirect by a chap called Timothy Wilson. It's not a golf book. It's not a light, it's not a light bedtime read. It's a fairly sort of academic type. I'm not an academic, but it had such an influence on me because the book Redirect, and the subtitle tells you everything, the stories that we live by. And basically what Timothy Wilson said, that we're all just a bunch of stories. Now, the thing is that if you keep repeating a story and you hear a story enough times, eventually you believe that story, that becomes your reality. And then the pieces sort of fitted together to me, because another guy told me that inside of your head, you've got something called the thinker and the prover. And what the thinker thinks, the prover aims to prove. So if my story is I'm a bad putter, if that's the story I keep repeating, the prover in my brain is always looking for evidence to back that up. So every time I 3-putt, every time I have a bad putting round, every time I talk about it, I'm getting more and more evidence to back the story up. So we actually become the story in the end. And this is the big thing for everybody listening. Unless you really understand your stories and you change your stories, you can do all the work you like on the technique and all the rest of it. If the story doesn't change, your actual output, your results will never change. You know, there's that famous story. You'll both have heard me say this too many times, but it's a real important one, that Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite had the same coach, Harvey Pennick, who wrote a great book years ago called The Little Red Book. And apparently they both went on the US tour at the same time. And the night they had the dinner with Harvey Pennick before they both started a professional career, I think it was Tom Kite said to Harvey Pennick, if there was one single piece of advice you'd give us, Mr. Pennick, to be successful, what would it be? And he said, make sure you go to dinner with good putters. Now, we can sort of laugh at that and think, what a daft thing to say. But there was genius in it, because he understood the power of repeating stories. I mean, Dice, you'll have seen that it's very important for young players who you hang about with, isn't it? And the company that you keep and your caddies and all the rest of it, they all build a story.
Massively. I've spoken to a lot of players, and they've said, like, you know, going forward, what would you say? And I've spoken to a lot of them, and they've had very negative friends or very negative people who play the game as well. And the first thing I say is, you need to change your surroundings. You need to start hanging out with winners. Who's favourite for that tournament you're playing in this week, and go and have a practice round with them and just watch them. That was the best bit of advice Chubby Chandler ever gave me. Play with Clarkey, play with Westwood, the winners. You'll learn so much. And he's right, I did. So that's the one thing I always tell the players I work with. Go and play with someone. Go and play with someone who you want to be, basically.
I think that's hard as a young pro. When you're first out on tour, say you just got your European tour card, your rookie year, to go and approach like an established player, that must be something pretty hard to do.
You know what, though? They'll always play with them. They love it. They love it. They don't do it, but if you ask them, I guarantee they'll do it, because they like spreading their knowledge and almost feeling like they're helping that player. Not too much, obviously, but yeah. I as soon as he said ask Clarkey, I got on the phone, texted him, and I played with him the following week, and it was brilliant.
That is such an important point that Dice has just raised there. And, you know, earlier on tonight, I was talking to a woman, Wendy Wood, who wrote a brilliant book. She's a psychology professor. She wrote a great book called Good Habits and Bad Habits. Definitely recommend people have a look at that one. It's tremendous. And she said that we massively underestimate the effect that other people have on us. You know, people who we're closest to it, that a behavior is constantly being triggered by other people all day long. So, you know, if you want to go regularly to the gym, it's a good idea to have a mate who's into training at the gym, and you'll bounce off each other. And the same with practicing golf. And, you know, even at the club level, one of the things I say to players, maybe the most important thing that you can do this year once you get back playing again, if you're serious about getting your handicap down, as Dice has just said there, step outside your comfort zone and go and play with some better players. It'll be difficult at first, it'll be hard, but you'll there's so much going on with that, because what happens if we're playing with the same people week after week, behavior gets triggered. It's weird how it happens, and a lot of people stay at the same level because they're constantly just being reinforced by other people who are playing at that level. I'm not saying don't play with your mates, but if you're serious about getting better, I couldn't agree more. I saw it with McDowell, and I saw it with Louis. One of the greatest things that Chubby did, exactly what Dice has just said, he got his young players to play with Lee Westwood and Darren Clark and Ernie Els and all the rest of it. And, you know, you just heard it from Dice there. That looking back was probably one of the most important reasons why he ended up being so successful.
Yeah. But you just summed it up there with two words. You said comfort zone, and everybody is stuck in their own comfort zone, aren't they? And that's the hardest bit, to get them to step out of it and to do something they're uncomfortable with. Yeah, for me, that's the people don't want to change what they already know.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, and you sort of said this when we were at Karl's talk, Dice, there's a lot of well-established players that probably are out on tour now that could do even better if they sort of let the guard down, stepped out the comfort zone, and sort of explored this kind of thing?
Oh, there's so many. There's probably 100 of them on Challenge Tour that you watch them and you think, man, he hits it so good, but he plays with his mates. They're all right players, and just has a nice time. They don't play a competitive match. There's a thing I'd say to do as well. When you play a practice round, put some money on it. So if you lose, it hurts. So it makes you concentrate a bit more. He'll just be playing with his mates, you know, thinking, oh, I'm progressing nicely, instead of actually going, right, he's fancied for this tournament this week. I'm gonna go and have a game with him. Harrington used to do it all the time with me on the short game. Right, come on, Dice, tenner, first to 10, tenner on it. And I knew I'd lose 99 times out of 100 because he's a flipping wizard around the greens, is Harrington. But I learned so much about how to hit shots. And do you know what? That time I did beat him, the satisfaction from it was better than any lesson I've ever had.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, guys, final question. This has come from Matthew Bennett. To both of you here. One to Karl. What would be your best tip on working on your mental game during lockdown? And Dice, what games can you play in the garden to do with your short game?
Go on, Karl.
Okay, go Karl.
Right. I think this is a real opportunity of an area that hardly anybody looks at, Alex, is if you think about golf, when you play golf, 90% of the time that you're on the golf course, you're not actually playing. You're walking in between shots. And it's usually in that time that a lot of people, we all do damage, you know, because our mind is very good at going back to the past, to stuff that we've done wrong or stuff that we regret, or getting ahead of ourselves, thinking about what might happen. Now, fortunately, at the minute, we can all still get out and walk. Well, one of the things that you can do, and it might sound a bit left field this, but get outside for your walk. And instead, just notice what your mind does. Notice how as you go out there, your mind will be starting thinking, oh, when's this going to end? When am I going to come out of lockdown? When's this going to happen? And, oh, what have I forgot to do? I've got to get, and your mind's constantly going backwards and forwards. And just for a period of time, imagine that you're walking a par 5 and just bring your attention to something physical. So maybe focus on your breath, the rise and fall of your breath. Maybe focus on the feeling of your feet on the floor, and just see if you can stay with that focus for the length of a par 5. Just pick a couple of lampposts if you're walking down the street. Now, what sounds the easiest thing in the world to do, I promise you, when you do it, you'll find your mind jumping off, it'll go somewhere else, but just bring it back. Now, if you did that for 10 or 15 minutes every day, just imagine when you get back on the golf course, and you've got that chance to win the monthly medal, and your mind's jumping ahead to winning speeches and all that. You remember that time when you've got, and actually when you go for your walk and you do it, it actually feels very, very good, because when your mind is focused on something that's happening here and now, we actually become very, very calm. The mind slows down. There's a relaxation response. Now, time and time again, for me, good players have described the mindset when they play great golf, and it's usually the word calm. So if calm is a kind of state that we're aiming for, you can actually, you don't need to be on the golf course to do this. You could, your daily walk can suddenly become a sacred ritual, really, where you're actually working on your game, ready for when you're back on the course.
And that's probably a good thing to do during this time anyway, isn't it, really? Like, yeah. Especially when you're just being told that we're going to be in lockdown for another 3 weeks. It's probably a good way of just trying to escape the whole scenario we're all in.
It's a great way of kind of dealing with this current stuff that's going on, that, you know, we're all, as I said earlier on, we're all projecting at what might happen and what the world's going to look like. And if you can just get out for 20 minutes, half an hour in a day, and part of that day you just think, okay, right, my commitment here is to just walk and see if I can pay attention to my breath. And as I say, it sounds a bit left field and a bit kooky, but just do it, and just notice what that does, and you'll find your breathing slows down, your mind goes a little bit quieter, and you become present to your current experience. Now, what do all the books say that we need to do to play good golf? Is be present, be in the present. Well, that's a skill that needs to be developed. You know, there's a lot of research on mindfulness and meditation. What is meditation? What is mindfulness? You're just deciding to pay attention to something that's happening now. Be that your breath, be that a mantra or whatever it is. And, you know, the whole area of mindfulness is one I would recommend everybody have a look at and explore, because I think it's a skill that can only benefit your golf when you get back to playing again.
Fantastic. And Simon, what's your short game?
Yeah, I just want to comment on what Karl said. I mean, like he said about being in the present. It's the only thing you can control, isn't it? How many players listening to this, watching this, will be 2 under, 2 to play? They're thinking about the next 2 holes instead of the shot that they've got ahead of them. Being present is as powerful a thing as you can get in golf if you can train to get it, I think.
Because you hear all the commentators say, and some of the players sort of allude to it. I'll just focus on the shot in hand and focus on the shot in hand. Now, sometimes I actually wonder whether they actually know they're doing that or they just say that they did that, because it's a hard thing to do.
It is, Alex, but it is a skill, I think, for us all. I've looked in this time and just think it's a skill I want to develop. There's a guy, we're actually running a mindfulness training course starting a week today, actually, for some Mind Factor coaches. We're starting that course, and I've got a guy who's up at Aberdeen University, a chap called Vin Harris, and he's taught meditation for over 35 years, and it's just every time I speak to Vin, I just think I want to be as calm as that. I want to look as though life is just, I can deal with life in the way that he does. But he talks about, you can have a conceptual understanding of all these things. We've all heard about meditation and mindfulness, but have we ever actually done anything about it? And he talks about the need to have a daily practice. You don't just do it now and again. You do it every single day. And as he said, you never get there. You never get to a point where I've got it. But you just the more you do it, the more you develop that ability to, as Simon said, to be present. But it's forget golf. It's a massive life skill, really, that we probably need more than ever at the minute. Sure.
I totally agree. Yeah. And so, Dice, what short game games can Matthew Bennett be doing?
I would say you've got to add a bit of challenge. I like the one with I get hula hoops, scatter them around the garden, get 18 balls, again, scatter them around, and basically just leave spacing in between each shot. So maybe even add a bit of consequence into it. So you could have a 5-yard chip. You go to that 5-yard chip, you go, right, I'm going to hit it to that hula hoop. You go through your process, hit the shot. If you count how many you get, but if you miss, maybe a little bit of consequence, add a bit of fitness into there. 5 sit-ups, 10 sit-ups if you miss it. Leave a 30, 40 seconds between each shot. Go to the next ball, the hoop's over there. Focus on that shot, hit that. Then all of a sudden, you have to hit that, otherwise you have to do 10 press-ups.
Yeah.
So it just re-engages you, makes you focus on that next shot. And just do that around your garden. And all of a sudden, you will find yourself getting focused over every shot. 18 chips might take you 20 minutes. But I tell you what, it'll really get you focused on each shot. And you're gaining something out of it as well, a little bit of fitness. So I love doing stuff like that.
Yeah, but doing that, you're saying that you might hit 18 chips in an hour or 20 minutes, whatever it is. Think about on the golf course, how many chips we actually hit. We don't stand there and hit it and hit it, hit it. And I know I'm opening another can of worms there, Karl, saying that, but it's true, isn't it?
Well, what Simon's describing there is training.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the longer you can leave between shots, I've spoke with loads of guys about this, and the longer you leave between shots, the more engaged you become on each shot. It's like, again, every shot matters all of a sudden. Instead of, right, I'm just going to hit 10 balls to that bucket. Oh, that went a bit long. I'll go a bit softer on this one. Bang. Oh, I got it. But you don't get another chance out there. So you have to engage with each shot. So there's one for you.
Thanks very much.
Golf's an interval sport.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why don't we train it interval?
Exactly.
Thanks very much for your time tonight, guys. I've taken up more than I should have there.
It's all right. Enjoyed it.
No, I appreciate it. And hopefully, guys, you guys watching, we've answered as many questions as we can. And there's some great stuff there that we spoke about in terms of what you can do just in general life, but actually how you can implement this as soon as we get back out onto the golf course.
Definitely. I think, you know, it's good to just share ideas, and I think one of the benefits of this time is you know, we've got a chance to do what we've done tonight, you know, and it's great to listen to both of you, you know, your own experiences and sharing ideas. And I think you know, the more we can do that, the more people are just looking forward to playing again. But there's things that we can actually be doing in this current time. If it's 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the hell it is, we can still maximize that time and feel like we're still achieving something every day.
Exactly. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you for watching the Golf Chat Show live tonight. If you did enjoy the content, guys, as always, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, as well as a thumbs up button. Massive thank you to Karl and Simon, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m.